Hello and welcome to the 6th week of Husky Mag. I'm Cal Rassman and alongside me is Madison Golden. Madison, there weren't very many sports going around for the Huskies this week, were there?
No, there weren't, Cal. Although the hockey team had a bye week, the Huskies football team played their final game at Husky Stadium.
Yes, and it sure was a great one as the game came down to the final drive. To start us off, we have Northern State quarterback Kyle Levan getting the ball after a couple fancy reverses and laterals, and he slings it deep to a wide-open Tyrell Anderson in the end zone for a touchdown. But the Huskies would come back with their own touchdown as Nate Meyer throws it to senior tight end Grant Thayer as he just waltzes into the end zone for an easy score. Nate Meyer trying to go to his favorite target Parsons, but it's tipped and intercepted as Northern State gets the turnover. Later in the game, we see Nate Meyer showing off his running ability as he rushes 11 yards for a Huskies touchdown. And once again, we see Nate Meyer throwing this time to redshirt freshman Kasai Ferris with a quick bubble screen pass as Ferris rushes down the sideline for his first touchdown at Husky Stadium. Nate Meyer once again here trying to get it to his number one guy, Jamison Parsons, but the deep ball is not successful as Northern State comes up with it and the Huskies lose possession. Back to Northern State later in the game, quarterback passes it to his tight end, who makes a nice catch in traffic. And now Northern State going deep again to number 3, Taylor Hoochin for another big play and a score, and that would be the final score of the game. But just before that, Northern State gives the ball to Nicholas Truen, who fights his way towards the goal line and breaks the plane for a touchdown, and the Wolves are ahead. And that's where this one would stay as the game came down to the final drive, but the Huskies fall to the Wolves. Although it's a tough loss, we saw some great things from quarterback Nate Meyer, and also the seniors on the team for their last home game as Liddell White ran for over 100 yards and Grant Thayer posted 5 catches and a touchdown.
The final home game was also senior day for the Huskies with 9 seniors listed on the roster.
Yes, and with Liddell White being one of those seniors, he sure made the best of his last game at Husky Stadium, running for a season-high 139 yards on 21 carries and also sticking with the offense. Grant Thayer at tight end also hauled in 5 passes for 79 yards and a touchdown.
And Liddell White in his career so far has played 44 games and on average had 5.5 yards per carry, as well as scoring 21 touchdowns.
The other senior threat, Grant Thayer, has played 46 games and on average has 16 yards per reception while hauling in 14 touchdowns in his 4 years at St. Cloud State.
In these last 4 years, these two have been a big part in the team's success and big contributors to their 30-16 record thus far, including a 12-2 season in 2013. Joining us now in the studio is our football analyst, Alex Curtis. Now, Alex, another tough loss for the Huskies. Their 4th loss by 7 or less points on Saturday. What do you think went wrong?
Well, they just had a lot of trouble throwing the ball down the field. It wasn't a very good game, and really not a lot went wrong for the Huskies. Just Channing Barber was all over Jamison Parsons all day, made it very hard for Nate Meyer to throw it, and he earned NSIC Player of the Week for that. So really, good job by him.
Huskies are now 5-5 for their season. They travel to the University of Mary this upcoming weekend. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in this upcoming game?
Well, they got to send their seniors out on a high note, honestly, because coming off of that loss, really, it's been a high and low season for them, and really high and low since they got here. The highest of highs being making the playoffs in 2013, being 2 games away from the national championship, and then the lows of these last 2 seasons that really haven't been all that good. Could be a big day for the Huskies.
Now, I know it's early, but looking into next season, the Huskies have Nate Meyer and Jamison Parsons still. But what are you getting excited for next season?
Honestly, this offense is going to be really, really good next year. Jamison Parsons is back. Nate Meyer's back. They're going to have Jaden Huff and Kurtwan Edwards, 2 very good running backs. Liddell White will be gone. They'll have to replace 3/5 of the offensive line, but really, there's a lot of things to look forward to. And then on the defensive side, you've got Craig Szymanski, Brady Westar, Adam Josephson, Keyshawn Davis. They'll all be back. So really, this defense that got picked on for most of the year, they're going to get another year older, and they're going to be even better next year than they were this year.
Sounds like we have a lot to look forward to next season as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The biggest receiving threat thus far this season for the Huskies has been without a doubt Jamison Parsons. He's not only successful on the field, but also off the field. Parsons was named the first team academic all-district honors and was also the winner of the Butch Raymond Scholarship Award this year. With Parsons being just a junior, we are looking forward to seeing more from him next year. Looking at where that puts the Huskies, they are in 4th place in the NSIC standings right behind Bemidji.
And also looking at all 3 teams in front of us, Each of those games were decided in the last minutes or in the final drive, so the Huskies have been right there, but have just come up a little short, and it's really turning out to hurt the Huskies in the standings.
It's very surprising to see Minnesota Duluth not in the #1 spot in the standings with having so much talent on their roster, but Northern State is really turning heads, finding that top spot in the NSIC North.
And at the bottom of the standings is University of Mary with a 1-9 overall record.
Speaking of the University of Mary, the Huskies will be traveling to North Dakota to take on the Marauders. The SCSU football team plays their final regular season game this Saturday. Kickoff is set for 1 p.m.
And switching gears to wrestling now, the men on the mat are looking to repeat as national champions this year, and Megan Hedstrom has more.
2014-2015 St. Cloud State Wrestling National Champions. Those words still ring in the ears of many students and athletes here at St. Cloud State University. Last year's wrestling team leaves a marker in the history books for St. Cloud State athletics and to many other Division II schools across the country. The wrestling team has earned the first national championship title in St. Cloud State history. Coming back this season with one title under their belt may leave pressure and high expectations for the wrestlers and the wrestling program. The preseason national poll has ranked St. Cloud State at #2.
This is going to be motivation going into this year, being a lot more confident in my abilities, and really it wasn't just me, it was the whole team effort. So using the team, being here together as a family, and just moving on to this year.
The SCSU wrestling team is back on the mat, preparing physically and mentally in hopes of grasping yet another championship, climbing to new heights each day. Wrestlers and coaches are clear that they not only want success for themselves, they want to open the door to greatness and show other athletic teams that it is possible. They want to lead by example and help create success among SCSU athletics as a whole.
Go back to back would really say a lot about the team in terms of dominance, and I think that's what we're trying to do this year. To dominate.
Wrestling will hit the mats November 15th in Ames, Iowa, as they take on Iowa State, and you can catch them in action at Hallenbeck Hall on December 12th for their first home meet of the season. Show your fellow Huskies support by cheering them on, because whether they know it or not, they have given us all something to believe in.
Coming up after the break, we will have all of your hockey previews, polls, and standings.
Husky Mag starts now.
Husky Mag starts now.
Husky Mag starts now. Husky Mag starts now.
This coming weekend, the SCSU women's hockey team takes on Mankato at home. The Huskies coming off a bye week with their last two games being against Bemidji on the 30th and 31st of October. The Huskies fell short with the Beavers, sweeping the series, winning 3-1 both nights. The team hopes to redeem themselves when they take on the Mavericks, who are also coming off of a bye week with their last time on the ice being swept by the University of Wisconsin at home. The puck is set to drop on Friday at 7:07.
And looking at where the Huskies rank in the standings compared to the Mavericks, they are currently one spot ahead at number 7, with 2 points after getting that overtime win against North Dakota in their last game.
The women's hockey team has struggled this year, but they have been playing against tough competition so far, while playing against 3 of the top 4 teams in the WCHA.
Yes, and Wisconsin continues to dominate against their competition, staying undefeated in the conference and keeping their number 1 spot not only in the conference, but also ranking them as the number 1 team in the nation. And coming up for the Huskies hockey team this week will be Western Michigan, and you might look at that and think Western Michigan should be an easy win, with the team not being ranked in the USCHO poll. But they are not to be taken lightly. Western Michigan earlier this year swept at the time #2 team in the nation, Nebraska Omaha. Nonetheless, the Huskies will look to get a couple wins while traveling to Michigan this weekend.
And Western Michigan was not the only team making upsets. This past weekend, #1 ranked North Dakota split the series with unranked Wisconsin Badgers. While the 20th ranked Minnesota Gophers were upset by the unranked Notre Dame on Friday, however, Minnesota came back with a 4-1 win on Saturday, even with the Gophers now going unranked, and Notre Dame jumps into the top 20 of the USCHO poll.
And looking at the USCHO poll, the Huskies have managed to move up one spot despite having a bye week.
As of right now, the Huskies are in the 9th spot.
Yes, and looking at the top of the poll, it's not surprising to see North Dakota drop after being upset by Wisconsin 4-1, and that will drop them down to the 3rd spot, with Providence taking over that top spot in the poll.
And Notre Dame jumps into the top 20 after defeating the Gophers, who now go unranked in the poll.
Jeremy Klein joins us now in the studio. And Jeremy, when you think of summertime, you think of fresh cut grass, you think of birds chirping, and you think of baseball.
Absolutely, Cal. When you think of the state of Minnesota and its beautiful summer days, one sport comes to mind. It's the sport of baseball. There is one family in central Minnesota where baseball seems to mean just a whole lot more. And during their darkest time, it was the sport of baseball that they needed the most to comfort them during the most challenging part of their lives.
This game, to me, is the greatest game on the face of the earth.
One pitch can change a baseball game.
If I am on the mound, I feel comfort, and I feel like I don't feel like anything around me matters.
One day can change someone's life.
All I want to do is be a pitcher.
Best night I've ever spent on a baseball field.
During a summer in central Minnesota, every night is a perfect night for baseball. But there was something special about July 10th, when St. Nicholas and the Watkins Clippers stepped out onto the field. What could have been just another amateur baseball game in central Minnesota became about a whole lot more.
Like, they've been committed to baseball their whole life. TJ's grown up, his dad coaching him, being around him for his whole life with baseball.
I've always said I'm one of the most unique parents, or one of the most fortunate parents, because you have a bond with a child that fell in love with what your life was always infatuated with, and that's really unique.
I was always a bat boy since I was a little kid. It was kind of chosen that that's the way it was going to go. And then eventually, the older I got, the more I enjoyed it.
The father and son continued to grow closer and closer as baseball continued to become a bigger part of TJ's life.
We'd spend countless hours in the backyard, talking strategy, working mechanics. What I absolutely adore about this kid, I built, different baseball structures back here, and we had built bullpens out here, and that kid was out here every day.
There were a couple times I just wanted to give up and walk away from him, but eventually I'd stay with him, and I just kept listening to him and trusting in him.
Distance would test Tom and TJ's relationship after he graduated high school and decided to play college baseball at Wabash Valley Community College in Illinois, 13 hours away from St. Cloud.
As hard as it was the best thing for both of us. He came back a better person and a better man.
After finishing up his second season at Wabash Valley, the summer rolled around and TJ returned home with an unexpected guest.
I had a little lump, showed me on Memorial Saturday, went and pitched on Sunday. Sort of broke out Sunday night with more of a rash, a little more swelling, and then Monday we were going to go to the Twins game on Memorial Monday, and he came in my room that morning. He couldn't breathe or swallow, the whole face was swollen up.
TJ was rushed to the St. Cloud Hospital, where he was diagnosed with an infection after his white blood cell count had skyrocketed to 76,000, when a normal person's white blood cell count is supposed to be at 8,000. And after 5 days in the hospital, it rose again to 82,000.
I just remember my heart dropping, and I was just kind of like, it hit me like there's something wrong with me.
You'll never forget that, because 76,000 was extremely alarming to him, and they thought it was because of an infection. 82,000 now, and there was no infection in the body. unfortunately meant there was something really else going on. So we asked at that time, you know, we've been told an infection, clearly it's not. What's the process here? And they started using words like leukemia and cancer that are usually signs of white blood cell counts to that degree. And so we started process of elimination with the tests. And unfortunately for us, CML is what he was diagnosed.
On June 6th, TJ Frericks was diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia, a cancer rarely found in young adults.
I just remember for about an hour, we just sat in my hospital room, you know, just kind of sitting there, you know, in silence. It's just one of those things where I would have never thought in my life, you know, this would have came upon me, and it was just one of those things where we just sat there and we didn't know what to say to each other because it wasn't a good thing to know. So.
As a parent, it's the lowest feeling in the world because we are your security, we are your trust, we are your knowledge. And there came a time there where you weren't anything anymore. You weren't able to control it. You weren't able to help him with it. You could see in his eyes in the hospital that he was so devastated at the fact that his baseball was either coming to a halt, being derailed, confused by where it was heading. How can I find a way to get him in a peaceful environment where he can start to wake up every day and not allow radiation, chemo, leukemia to be his only thought process and his only form of that day? And it was the baseball field.
Tom and TJ had always dreamed of playing together, but the timing never worked out. Until now. The former catcher approached the Minnesota Amateur Baseball Board and was given a one-day exemption to return to the Watkins Clippers and throw on his catcher's equipment one last time. This time, it would be more than just another game of catch with his son.
It's really hard to even imagine or think of that, like, tomorrow's really going to happen, where I'm going to look in for a sign and my dad's going to be there.
To be able to tomorrow night and I'll be in a position where you're catching, he's pitching, and sort of match wits off of things that you worked about 10, 12 years trying to teach. It's pretty cool stuff. Tomorrow
night, I'm nothing else than a pitcher. I don't need to worry about the leukemia. I don't need to worry about, anything that's going on with my body and what's wrong with me. It's just all about me going out tomorrow and having fun and hopefully getting a win and throwing well.
After weeks of struggles, treatments, and hospital visits, it was time for a boy to return to the game that he loved. With his biggest supporter 60 feet, 6 inches away. TJ was phenomenal, throwing 5 shutout innings, giving up just 3 hits. And his 52-year-old dad led the way offensively with 2 hits and 2 RBIs. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter what the scoreboard read or the numbers on the stat sheet said.
The baseball career and the way of life now can start up and start working its way. Sure, things will be different how he goes about it, but tonight he showed he can still do it.
If I dreamt it, that's as perfect as it could have got.
Because this was more than a game.
It was so electric and so awesome that best night I've ever spent on a baseball field.
This was an opportunity for a father to help his son in the only way that they knew how.
So Jeremy, how has TJ's body been responding to the treatments?
Cal, I've been talking to his dad, Tom, and I've talked to TJ. Both of them said that his body's responding well. One thing that we do have to remember is the day that TJ pitched was the first time that he got his blood worked on since being diagnosed with chronic myeloid leukemia. And on that day, his white blood cell count had been declining after taking the miracle pill. So all signs were pointing in the perfect direction, and that was just an absolute perfect day for the Frericks family.
So was TJ able to return to the Wabash Valley to continue his baseball career?
He did go back to school at Wabash Valley, and he's continuing to work with the team. One thing that we do have to remember, though, is he is in remission. It is chronic myeloid leukemia. It's not going to fully go away. He's at the mercy of that miracle pill the rest of his life. But in talking with Tom and talking with TJ, there's no way that this thing is going to beat him. They both have just the best mentality. When we talked to him in the summer, and if you talked to him last week, both of them just have the perfect mentality that they're going to beat it.
Thank you, Jeremy, for joining us. We'll be right back.
Husky Mag starts now. Husky Mag starts now.
For all of your local sports news from the Granite City, catch Husky Mag Thursdays at 7.
This past Wednesday, the SCSU soccer team fell short to the Winona State Warriors, taking a tough 1-0 loss for their final game of the season.
But even after the loss on Wednesday, it's hard not to be impressed by the women's soccer team this year. The team had a 9-6-3 record for a total of 26 points.
The team is looking to continue their success and improve, with most of their team consisting of just underclassmen.
One of which being freshman Maria Cass, who was the Huskies' leading scorer this season. A huge contributing factor to this women's soccer team this season was freshman phenom Maria Cass with 8 goals and 2 assists. She led the Huskies in points this year, and with her only being a freshman, there's no telling where this all-star will go in these next few years.
Not only did Maria Cass have an incredible first season as a Husky, she, along with sophomore Mackenzie Winters and senior Naomi Kohlhoff, were named all NSIC for women's soccer. Despite their recent loss, the SCSU soccer team still has a lot to be proud of.
Switching gears to volleyball now, and looking at Friday, the Huskies fell to the Marauders in a close 5-set match. Leading the Huskies in the tough loss was junior Macy Weller with 18 kills.
On Saturday, the Huskies came out looking to make up for their Friday loss with a matchup against the Minot State Beavers. The Huskies succeeded, winning in 5 sets, with senior Brianne Stamer leading SCSU with 30 digs. In his first season as head coach, Coach Bragelman has really contributed to the overall success of the Huskies team. The Huskies can also attribute their success to their standout player, in particular. Kathleen and Kirsten have more.
Right off the bat, Brianne Stamer was successful as a Husky. As a freshman, Stamer held the record for most digs in a single season.
I didn't really have any expectations coming in freshman year, so when I broke that, I really had no idea.
Flash forward to her junior year of college, Stamer finished the season with 1,372 career digs. Now in her senior year, she holds the St. Cloud State record for most digs with a total of 1,893.
Me being able to get that record is kind of rewarding for our whole team, because we're able to give teams more like a run for their money and being able to compete more.
Stamer surpassed former Husky Andrea Pieper, who totaled 1,885 digs from 2005 to 2008.
If someone's breaking that record, that means that we're getting to conference and the conference tournament, and that we're making regionals. So if someone breaks it, it means that we're making progress and that we'll be able to compete for like a national championship someday.
With her name now written first in the record book, Brianne Stamer has left a legacy behind at St. Cloud State.
The Huskies have a tough matchup in their next match against #1 NSIC team, Northern State.
And with the Huskies coming off their last win in hopes of making it 2 in a row in their game this Friday. This past weekend, the SCSU men's and women's swim and dive team headed to the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay to take on Green Bay as well as the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater. The men's team started off strong, taking first in the 200 freestyle relay. However, they ended up falling short, taking second in the meet overall, with Wisconsin-Green Bay taking the win. Now looking at the women's side, the women took second in the 200 freestyle relay and also finished second in the meet overall. Freshman swimmer Tristan Ferguson was just named the NSISC's Men's Swimmer of the Week. Ferguson had a huge meet on Saturday in the Huskies Division I matchup with Green Bay. He completely dominated in all things freestyle, taking first place in the 50 freestyle, the 100 freestyle, and the 200 freestyle. Ferguson also anchored the winning 200 medley relay as well as the 400 medley relay. The Huskies take on the University of South Dakota on November 20th, and Ferguson is expected to continue his success.
Well, the Huskies men's and women's basketball teams play this weekend, and for the men, it's their first of the year. They will be playing Missouri Southern State University on November 13th, and the women will play their second game of the season on the 14th at Hollenbeck Hall versus Northland College. Both teams will be searching for that first win of this young season. And coming up after the break, we have the best part of the show with the Mag Player of the Week and also Blizzard's Best.
And we will also look at what sports are coming up this week for the Huskies.
Husky Mag starts now. Husky Mag starts now.
For all of your local sports news from the Granite City, catch Husky Mag Thursdays at 7.
And now to our Mag Player of the Week. We have the quality quarterback Nate Meyer as the leader of this Huskies football team. He has been outstanding so far this season and has been quite the throwing threat. We know his favorite wide receiver to throw to is Parsons, but Meyer has also been doing a great job this year at spreading the ball around. Meyer has also been getting it done with his legs as he scored a rushing touchdown in their last game, and he has been doing it all season long.
Yes, and Cal, looking at Nate Meyer, he's only a junior. They've still got him a whole nother year and are expecting more great things to come. Taking a look at Blizzard's Best for this week.
Yes, Madison, time for everyone's favorite part of the show, so let's kick it off. Starting with number 3, we have a forced fumble by Huskies defender Kyle Minnis, and it's recovered by number 32, Andrew Elliott, against Northern State this last Saturday.
Looking at number 2, Nate Meyer drops back in the pocket and delivers a quick pass to wide receiver Kasai Ferris for a 15-yard touchdown.
And finally, the top play for this week is coming from your Mag Player of the Week. It's Nate Meyer as he slices and dices through the defense for a quick 11-yard touchdown run.
This Friday, men's basketball kicks off their season at Missouri Southern State, and volleyball plays at Northern State this Friday as well.
Men's hockey will be at Western Michigan on Friday and Saturday, while the women will be playing at Herb Brooks National Hockey Center against the Mavericks on Friday and Saturday. And to wrap up for the sports for the week, we have football with their last regular season game at the University of Mary.
Well, it's been a good week for Husky sports, even with both hockey teams on a bye.
Yes, it sure has. And from Cal Rassman and Madison Golden at Husky Mag, we'll see you next week.